Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on July 28, 2021 at approximately 2:05 p.m. PST. So, where do we go from here? Presumably you've identified something in your life that you're not totally content with. That's where the changes start. Okay, now, yes, I have this wonderful habit of being a little bit, shall we say, scattered on occasion. But when we're starting to look at the world, okay, now we're coming out of one mess, but there is something to keep in consideration here. Even though this major problem that we've had over the last couple of years, this COVID pandemic, even though it is still an ongoing thing, we also have to understand COVID is just one of many, many, many things that is still a pandemic. Domestic violence, addictions, okay, rampant spending, and absolutely unbalanced both spiritual and civic laws. They are all at an all-time, well, not at an all-time, but they are at an incredible off balance at this point. Rome went through exactly the same problem, where the poor were getting poorer, the rich were getting richer, and it eventually backfired in a massive fashion. Now, people keep asking, keep talking about there's all this stuff floating around on the internet and in the public paper, okay, about when is World War III going to start. Well, bad news, World War III already started. Okay, but it's not what you think. World War III is not people with guns or people with different ideologies. World War III is the world itself striking back. Net result, we have the pandemic. We've got phenomenal forest fires right now. Okay, taking out all kinds of people. And if you notice, it's not just targeting the wealthy. It's not just targeting the poor people. It's not targeting. It is simply going, the fires are simply going, regardless of what your paycheck looks like, regardless of what your orientation or your skin color. The fire does not care. COVID does not care. Alcoholism could probably care less, but I'm not entirely certain how that would be managed. Okay, these are all ongoing problems. And the only functional way I know of to actually solve these major problems is, and it's going to sound backwards, I'm going to tell you, getting along with each other will help immensely, and you're going to sit there in all likelihood and go, well, how can my getting along with somebody slow down on the amount of forest fires that happen? Well, here's the way that works. Okay, now, human scientists have already discovered in no uncertain terms that negative energy has a negative impact on plant growth. Absolutely has a massively negative impact. Now you can test it yourself. Just take two different plants that you own. Okay, one of them. Now preferably take two that are the same. One of them you talk really nicely to on a daily basis. Talk really nicely to it. Play decent music, like play relaxing music around it. Okay, and you'll find it grows really fast. Okay, it becomes really healthy. The other one, swear at. Okay, scream at it, play really, really angry music at it, and you'll find no matter how much you try with the fertilization and the lighting on it, the thing will have trouble growing. Now, don't do this for too long, because quite honestly, I'd rather the plants not up and die because of human experimentation. This test has already been done hundreds of times, both in controlled environments and on the farm. I know of one individual who actually had a small peach farm, and half the crop he'd walk amongst them, whistling Dixie and that sort of thing, talking nicely to each of the trees, and basically remaining in a really good mood all the way through the orchard. The crop doubled in output. Okay, the other half of his orchard, he went and walked through, screaming at the trees, telling them how pointless they were, how unproductive, how unprofessional they were, and basically being absolutely rough on them. Net result, they didn't produce a peach. Okay. Now that said, the same thing applies to you. If you bury yourself in negative emotion, if you bury yourself in negative thought process, your body will retaliate with fatigue, with heart disease, with sugar problems, with all sorts of other physical complications. One of the obvious ones would be cancer. Now, having a positive, bright, and shiny outlook on yourself on its own will not solve the problem. Okay, but it will certainly stack the deck in favor. Okay, so when we're talking about changing the way your world is working, we're actually talking about the idea that look at what you're happy with and start, keep that in your life. But the stuff you're not content with, find a way to modify the direction. Okay, to really open the door and start modifying that so that all you've got coming to you is the positive feelings. Okay, now the reality of it is this. Sometimes, depending on who you talk to, okay, sometimes thoughts can get a little bit strange. Okay, and I'm not talking about the real negative ones about, gee, I really dream about, murdering this person or blowing that building up. Thoughts like that are definitely not on the plus side. But you can have, people do have amorous feelings towards other people. Now, given that you have not been told, do not entertain those ideas. If you've been told, do not entertain those ideas, take your mind and focus somewhere else. Okay. If you have been told, on the other hand, by that special someone or by that one that you're interested in, that those thoughts are okay, then absolutely indulge your thoughts in them. You've been given permission. Let it happen. Okay. But understand, especially when we are talking about relationships, it doesn't matter how far into a relationship you are or how far along the road an intimate relationship has gotten. Especially when you're talking about, about the intimate side of life. Okay, bad news for you. Okay, there is this funny little word that so many people really miss. Okay, and only has one functional definition. And that word is no. And when you're with somebody and they say no, that doesn't mean not yet. That doesn't mean, oh, come on, it's okay. It means no. There is no room for misinterpretation. Okay. So regardless of where things are standing, understand the only thing you ever have in life, the only thing you will ever own that can never be taken away from you is your word. Now remember what I said. Karmic law is pretty black and white. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Which means, if you're in a situation and you tell somebody, no, don't talk about that or don't do that, you're not saying, in most cases, you're not saying, just wait a little. You're saying, no, I'm not ready. No, that's just where it ends. With that in mind, okay, it's very important to realize that regardless of your feelings, if the person you're interested in is saying no, that means no. Okay, yes, it can be frustrating on occasion. And I've heard people do this absolutely bizarre thing. And then go, well, the way a person dressed it says that's what they're looking for. And no, the way somebody dresses that's how they desire to dress. They are not asking to be treated like garbage. They are not asking to be beaten on. They are not asking to be mistreated. They are simply saying, this is the outfit I desire to wear. This is how I desire to feel good about me. Not, this is how I desire to be a target. Okay. That's just the reality of it. And this is why, even in my own home, I have told my own kids the same thing. What you dress like, what you dress like, whether you've got piercings, whether you've got tattoos, how you do your hair and your makeup is not the relevant concern. Do what you will with that, as long as it's socially acceptable. But understand, it's not the way you look that matters, it's how you treat people. That's what makes a difference. Okay, now, there are all kinds of ways of doing things. There's all kinds of ways of dealing with situations. And understand, I am not perfect, and I certainly don't expect you to take my word for it. Okay, when the tools I'm using, all I'm saying is the tools that I offer you are the exact same tools and philosophies that I personally live my life by. So when we're talking about modifying the way your energy is running, okay, we are talking about taking a look at whether you're content with the way your world's working, not whether anybody else is. This has absolutely nothing to do with whether somebody else is content. It has to do with whether you are remaining true to you. That's all it has to do with. Okay? And the reality of it is, sometimes, as a matter of fact, quite often, what I've found, especially in today's world and the way that things have been dealt with, sometimes it is easier to type something or to text something than it is to try and vocalize it. Okay, especially if you happen to be a shy individual to start with. Okay, now you don't have to be a professional writer. Okay, and I will tell you this. This is a rather critical standpoint from my standpoint. I'm working on, like I said, 32 different books at the same time. And I do feel I'm a decent writer. But where it comes to punctuation, okay, where it comes to that side of it, I'll tell you, the reality is finding a replacement for the person that is currently doing my proofreading would be virtually impossible. Okay, they are so far above what they thought they were capable of. And, I really would be hard-pressed to find somebody better at it. In my opinion, anyway. And this is just for me. Okay. So the reality of it is that, when we talk about the other side of that, you take a look at the negative, you minimize the negative, you maximize the positive. Okay. And what I mean by that is if something's upsetting you, put as much focus into modifying that as you can, instead of dwelling on the fact that you did something wrong. Okay. You focus on you minimize that side, and you maximize the positive side. Now, again, I'm not about to use somebody else's name online. Mine is the only name that I utter online, and the reason for that is simple. I'm the only one I've got permission to do that with. Okay, so I'm just not doing the rest of it. People have asked me, many people have asked me in public, who my other half is, or what are they like, and I'm like, the only thing I will tell you, the only thing I tell people is, number one, okay, I'm off the market, and that's just where that is. Okay, I've got a partner I'm quite content with. Okay, the proofreader that I've got, they know who they are, and there is no way I know how to really give them a proper pat on the back. Okay, because they are doing so much more for the way that I'm writing and making it so much more efficient, so much clearer. I really don't think they've got necessarily a functional idea of just how talented they are in that department. Okay, so assuming, of course, they hear this, okay, they undoubtedly will know who who I'm talking about. Same goes for you. If you know somebody that is really above board and you've got a way of letting other people know, absolutely, I encourage you to do so. Okay, I remember going into an airport one day, and I'd had a good trip. Everything was just absolutely perfect. But I was coming home, and I had the time to kill. So now, bear in mind, I only had carry-on luggage. So I went over to the baggage claim. I wasn't in a hurry. There were 3 or 4 people in front of me, and the woman that was handling the baggage check was clearly having a really, really bad day. So I waited patiently in line. I wasn't in a hurry, so it wasn't really creating a problem for me. And I finally got up to the counter, and she was just absolutely rattled. Okay, so when I get up to the counter, she looks at me and did her best to smile. And she goes, "How can I help you, sir?" And I looked at her and I went, "Well, I just figured I had the time to deal with it, so I figured I'd come over here and just say thank you so much for a great flight. Everything arrived in one place, in the right place. No complaints on the plane about any of it. Thank you so much." And she goes, "No, really, what can I do to help, sir?" And I says, "No, that really is all there is to it." Right? Well, it took me 2 or 3 minutes to convince her that all I was doing was saying thank you. But I'll tell you, at the end of it, she looked at me and she goes, and she actually looks at me and she goes, "Thanks, I really needed that today." Sometimes that's all it takes. A few minutes out of your time to make somebody that's having an absolutely miserable day feel just a little better. Okay, again, do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Okay, this idea of making, what I watch with many people, they'll take a look at somebody that's dressed nicely or somebody that's just simply kind of pulled it together, right? And they'll make some sort of a comment that is either rude or really unflattering. Okay, some people call it a pass. Personally, I call it something else, and I'm not going to repeat that online. Okay, but if you see somebody that is looking nice, absolutely let them know that they're looking nice. Okay, like if I'm complimenting somebody, and I've done it before in front of my own partner in the past. Okay, I've looked at somebody else and gone, "Gee, that outfit looks nice on you," or "Gee, your hair looks really nice today." In my eye, from my standpoint, if I'm telling somebody they have nice hair, okay, all I mean is they have nice hair. Their hair looks really good at that point. It does not mean anything else. Okay, and if you're complimenting somebody with a hidden agenda on your part, keep in mind, do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. When we all start following these guidelines, be true to yourself first, do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. Working together, and this is the message I actually return to actually pass on to people. Working together, we can make this a better world for most people. But it's going to require the effort of every entity in existence working together. Now, before you jump on the idea that that's not possible, let's remember it was not possible, according to the people at the time, for the Scottish clans to unite. It was not possible for the 13 colonies to come under one idea. It was not possible for Canada to become a country spread out as far as it was. Okay, it was not possible for the British criminals to make a go of life in Australia. It was not possible. The only thing they had going for them there was they were no longer in Britain, and therefore that's where they ended up. It was also not possible for slavery to be turned around. Now here's the silly part, and something that people have to realize. Slavery is an absolutely horrendous thing. completely contravenes the idea of do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. But let us be very clear about one thing that most people just refuse to look at. Yes, slavery was an absolute horrendous thing. But the reality of it is that, yes, slaves were picked up in Africa and brought over to the Americas by the Dutch. And I presume probably a few other people as well. But what most people overlook is that the Dutch got them from other people in Africa. Okay, so we have to realize behind all the history that you've been shown, there are major chunks that have been cut out of the history books that people just don't talk about. Okay, the same thing applies to religion. Okay, if you look at the different religions, virtually every religion that I've looked at teaches the same thing. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Okay, well, the sad reality is what I see out in the real world is anything but what I would consider love. Okay, I see so many people, or you hear about so many people, beating the daylights out of their partner, and then turning around and going, you made me do it. It's your fault, but I'm sorry, I do love you, and I won't let it happen again. And the very following week, at the latest, they turn around and repeat the same process. Now this, sad to say, people, this is not called love. Okay, when you're looking at retail, when you're looking at sales, and you're talking about caring for your neighbor, okay, the moment things get tight, all of a sudden people are jacking prices. This is not called taking care of your neighbor. This is called greed. And rest assured, if you leave the prices at a functional level, okay, what'll happen is more people will be able to survive, and in the long run, your business will do better. But you have to realize that we're going through a time right now that is absolutely horrendous for a lot of people. Okay, now, from what I've seen, okay, especially when we start looking at the financial side of things, poor people do not seem to notice when we get into a depression. And here's why. If you're struggling to survive day to day, if you're debating which meal you get to eat on a daily basis, when all of a sudden depression hits and it's harder to come by food, people that are already suffering from poverty are not the ones that notice the depression. You tell them we're in a depression, they'll look at you and go, really? What's that? Well, we're having trouble making ends meet. And they'll look at you and go, well, yeah, that's a daily thing. The people that get hit with depression the most are the ones that have a lot of excess money to start with. Okay. Now, why they call it a depression, I presume it has to do with the graph that finances go through. But understand something, and this is where it is absolutely imperative that people start to realize. The one desire I have of people is if you've got the wherewithal to help somebody, do so. Do not cripple yourself in the process, or you're going to need help from somebody else as well. But if you've got the wherewithal to help somebody, and that may be something as simple as helping somebody get their groceries from the grocery store out to their car, with no other thing in mind than, gee, let me give you a hand with those. Okay, that little bit of help, it's not a financial drain. If you've got the time to do it, I strongly encourage you to do it. And the reason for it is energy out, energy in. When you start doing that, the more people see that happen, the more acceptable it becomes. Okay, now in Canada it's not too bad. In the States it's absolutely horrendous. Instead of having people getting along, from what I gather, there's metal detectors and everything going into the schools as you're arriving. Now, I will tell you this, if you have to have metal detectors to stop guns and knives from coming in, there is something off kilter with the social message that's getting out in the first place. Okay, I have the same outlook where it comes to people that are being pushed through the system and graduating without the ability to read or do basic math. When that is happening, there is something seriously off kilter with the education. Now, this is not a one-person job, and this is why one of the big projects I've got on the go right now is getting this message to reach everybody. And I don't mean just the ones that have the money to have a computer. I mean even the people out there that you run into face to face that don't have a computer. Okay, they too require the message. They really do require the message that working together, we can make this a better world. Okay. Now, for me, it's a very long, this is a long drawn out process that I'm going to be working on. Okay. And I strongly encourage you to really reach out to the people around you. Okay. There's a song back in 1973 by the Carpenters that goes up, up with people. I encourage you to look it up. It has a very solid message that tells you one very simple thing. Everybody out there has value. Every single person, every one of you, whether you've got a physical challenge, a mental challenge, or whether you're just financially challenged, it doesn't matter. You're all of equal value. And it takes the unification and the inclusion of all of these people to make this a better world for most. There will invariably be exceptions, okay? But this doesn't mean you shouldn't make the effort. You know, why bother? It's just going to go that way. I remember working for a restaurant one day. Years ago, I had a job at a restaurant, and I was caught up. I'd caught up with all the dishes, and I was in the middle of washing the dishwasher now. And I kid you not, my supervisor at the time asked me what I considered one of the densest questions he could have done. He asked me, he looked at me, and bear in mind, this is a guy that had strong recommendational capacity to fire me. He looks at me and he goes, "Why are you washing the dishwasher?" You know, we were right in the middle of lunch and I'd gotten ahead, so that's what I was doing. I looked at him and I said, "Well, it was dirty and I had 30 seconds to my name." Well, he turned around and looks at me and goes, "Well, why bother? It's just going to get dirty again anyway." And my immediate reaction was, what kind of, and this is what I literally told him. I says, what kind of a stupid outlook is that? It's just going to get dirty anyway. Why am I even washing the dishes? I says, if they're just going to get dirty anyway, why do we wash the dishes? Why do we wash the pots and pans? And for that matter, why does anybody wash their laundry? It's just going to get dirty again anyway. Right? And, you know, quite frankly, he didn't have an answer. But the reality of it is this. If you desire your life to change, you're going to have to be the one to buck the path you're on. You're going to have to be the one to pick up the pace and really change the direction that the energy is going in. Okay, and I am going to be dealing with that again in the very near future. But for the moment, as I said, I do my best to keep these to the half-hour mark. With that in mind, I will be back again tomorrow. Okay, before I do that, please give us a thumbs up on the video, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to ring that alert bell. Okay, that way you can see the other videos as they come up. And if you've got questions of any field that you desire to ask me, take a look at the list below this video. It'll give you all kinds of contact points. And I will do my best to get back to you. In the meantime, I'm going to bring this to a close. So, until tomorrow, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.